Hey guys, this is 236 and Ruben here, and today I will be ranking the AC combat systems from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion, so feel free to voice your opinions in the comment section. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. In last place, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey's combat system. The main reason I have it so low is due to the fact that the combat only becomes fair and tolerable much later into the game. The enemies are huge damage sponges, which makes combat really feel like a chore and makes it feel unfair as you're doing so little damage to your enemies while they do massive damage to you. Fortunately, this bad feature can be solved by finding collectibles much later in the game that you have to upgrade for massive amounts of drachmae, which takes a while to get. After you get these upgrades, the combat becomes much more fair, but you can only get these upgrades at like level 50, which is really too late in the game. A game's combat system should be fun from the start and good so that it will help you enjoy the game and keep you interested. Assassin's Creed Odyssey does this too late in the game, which means that the combat system fails the game, and that is why I have it at the bottom of my list. Okay, next we have Assassin's Creed Syndicate's combat system. This combat system looks very janky and silly, which is why it is not higher up on my list. It is a bit too fast paced and the enemies can take so many stab wounds that it just makes the combat look silly and unrealistic. Another problem I have is that the weapon variety is so limited when compared to the other Assassin's Creed games. You can only use the kukri knife and the cane sword, which feels very limiting and can make combat feel a bit boring at times. Despite these problems, the combat system works alright and at least the enemies go down at a fair rate when compared to Assassin's Creed Odyssey. However, the other combat systems on the list have less problems and work better, which is why AC Syndicate's combat system is lower on my list. Alright, next we have Assassin's Creed Black Flag's combat system. The main reason I have it lower on my list is due to the fact that the combat system is a little bit too easy. There is one move that you can use that will annihilate every single enemy type but one, which is normally the captain of the ship. You don't really run into these enemy type too often, so it makes the combat even easier. Despite of this problem, combat is still enjoyable as it is very smooth thanks to the chain kills. The pistols were also a very nice addition to the combat, and you could come up with some very interesting combos which made the combat look much nicer. I also love how you could turn enemies against each other using the Berserk Dart, which made combat more interesting, and it was also nice to see how your enemies will help you in destroying themselves. Overall, this is a good combat system. It is certainly not the best in the series, but it is still a decent combat system. Alright, now we have Assassin's Creed Rogue's combat system. I like this combat system more than Black Flag, and that is due to the fact that Assassin's Creed Rogue has more enemy variety and weapon variety. You had to change your combat style frequently as there were many types of enemies. This kept you on your toes, especially with the stalkers who could attack you at any moment. You were also given grenades, which could kill tons of enemies or turn enemies against each other. On top of that, you have almost all of the weapons that you possess in Black Flag. All of these things made AC Rogue's combat more fun than Black Flag, as the combat forced you to be alert and there were much more options to use to approach a fight, plus it was much more challenging. However, one small thing holding it back is that it has less finisher animations than Black Flag, and it does not look as nice as the animations in Black Flag, which could take you out of the experience at times, due to some of the animations looking boring and ugly. Overall, I still like this combat system, as it is slightly more challenging than Black Flag's combat system and has more variety. However, the Assassin's Creed combat systems that have been produced by the other titles have better combat systems than this one. Okay, next we have Assassin's Creed 2's combat system. This Assassin's Creed introduced much more variety to combat by adding many more weapons like maces, smoke bombs, the hidden gun, and many more, which help to make combat more interesting. I also love how this game introduced the disarm technique where you could use your enemy's weapons against them, and it could also get you out of a sticky situation. It also has many nice finishing animations with many different weapons. However, this combat system still has problems. The counter system is a bit tedious as you would always see the same animation a few times and it could break the flow of combat, thus making it look silly. The combat also does not flow as well as the other combat systems on this list. However, I still appreciate the good things it does, which allows it to outshine its bad traits, but it is still not as good as the other combat systems which are higher up on this list. But I still appreciate of the things it brought to the Assassin's Creed franchise. It forced them to innovate and it brought many new ideas to the series. Alright, next up we have Assassin's Creed Revelations combat system. This combat system is very similar to Assassin's Creed 2's combat system, but it is much better. The combat flows better and there are chain kills in this game which helps the combat feel smooth. The counters also work better than AC2 and the bombs are a nice addition to the combat system. The animations are also not too bad, however there is one problem that annoys me and that is the slow-mo. I just feel like it's very unnecessary and it does not add any cool factor to the combat. In some cases, it would just ruin some of the animations and the animations would have been better off without this mechanic. Despite these problems, the combat is still enjoyable and challenging due to the Janissaries being tougher than the normal enemies, which makes you need to come up with more options in combat to tackle the situation well. Overall, it's a good combat system, but not as good as the rest on the list. At number 5, we have Assassin's Creed 3's combat system. This combat system flows very smoothly and works well. The chain kills in this game are top tier and it is not overpowered as there are some enemies that can break that chain and harm you. It forces you to be alert and use the right tactics on enemies, which I really like as it keeps combat interesting. It also introduced the human shield mechanic, which was a cool feature. The animations are also some of the best that the Assassin's Creed franchise has ever produced. It portrays Connor's brutality very well. The only complaints I have are that the weapon variety isn't that good, and the combat could become a bit too easy as it was not too difficult to mow down tons of enemies. However, you could make the argument that assassins are elite warriors who can take out the enemies easily, and I would tend to agree with you on that actually. So in conclusion, this is a good combat system that I really like. However, there are other AC combat systems that I prefer. At number 4, we have the first Assassin's Creed's combat system. This combat system works well. The counter kills work smoothly and the animations produced make them look satisfying and are well made. The combo kills can be performed when you hit your enemy's weapon at the right time, which works very well too. There are also different enemy types in the game which forces you to use different tactics and it forces you to keep on your toes at all time as you always have to be alert. The only reason this is not higher up on my list is because the other titles have more challenging combat and the animations look slightly better in the other Assassin's Creed games. Okay guys, next on the list is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood's combat system. I like this combat system a lot as it had the best chain kills that any Assassin's Creed game has produced as it flows the best, it has very good animations and the counter kills also work very well. I also love the addition of the hidden gun and the kick. It made the combat flow even better. However, it also made the combat system a little too easy, which is my main problem with the combat system. Despite all of these problems, I still like the combat system for what it is, and I still think that it is good, as it is quite enjoyable. However, there are two more combat systems in the Assassin's Creed franchise that balance the difficulty and fun much better in my opinion. Alright guys, at the number 2 spot we have Assassin's Creed Unity's combat system. This is a very good combat system that balances difficulty very well in my opinion. It is difficult but not too difficult. I love how they changed the parry system where it took away the insta-kill when you counter an enemy. Now it only leads an enemy to be open to another attack. This encourages you to be more aware of your surroundings and always be alert, as many enemies could attack you at once. There are also different enemy types, which helps add to the difficulty and fun. The enemy levels were also added, which meant that you had to level up Arno so that you'll be able to take on higher level enemies. Overall, this combat system is very good, as it made you invest in a lot of good customizable options for Arno so that you could take on higher level enemies, which made the combat more fun. The combat system is also well balanced on the difficulty side while still being fun and satisfying, which is why this is one of my favorite combat systems in Assassin's Creed. In the number one spot, we have Assassin's Creed Origins combat system. This is my favorite combat system as it balances difficulty and fun the best. It is also very engaging. It's much more difficult when compared to the previous Assassin's Creed titles, but I feel like it's a needed change as too easy combat is not as fun. Once you learn how to master the combat, it becomes even more fun than it was originally. There is a good variety in weapons and there are many uses for all of them. It helps keep combat interesting as it's giving you more options to take out your enemies. I also love how you could take out your bow and change up the combat and use it while in combat. It's a nice addition. All of the weapons are useful in their own way, and each specific weapon helps you deal with the different situations that you are in. There are also overpower moves that you can use to help mow down enemies a little quicker with the chain kill, which is a cool option in my opinion. There's so many options in combat which makes this system so interesting and fun in my opinion. Despite all of these good things I've stated, the level gating system might turn off some people, as an enemy a few levels above you will destroy you very easily. It feels very artificial and I was not really a fan of that, and I'm looking forward to see how Valhalla handles this, as we know that Valhalla's system will not have the same level gating system. Overall, I still love this combat system. It has combat that flows well with good animations, good variety, and it is engaging and fun. It also balances difficulty the best in the whole franchise. All of these reasons are why it's my favorite combat system in the Assassin's Creed franchise. So what's your favorite AC combat system? Be sure to share your opinions in the comment section because I want to see what you think. So I hope you enjoyed this video guys. With that being said, this has been 2367 Ruben signing out.